If this doesn't give goosebumps to Michigan deer hunters, nothing will. Look at the size of this rack, very close to being a state record. Going to be the star of the show a little later this evening, and here are the stars of our evening's program. I'm wearing my red plaid shirt tonight for a change because it's a special program. This is Big Buck Night. We have the top deer in the state, the top deer hunters in the state, men and women, bow, muzzle loader, handgun, the whole works. So you're going to want to watch it. Stay tuned. I'm Fred Trost. It's Thursday night, Big Buck Night, right here on Michigan Outdoors. Ellis Weigant of Williamston brought a rack to us that does not qualify. Ellis, I'm sorry, 27.7, the number of tines in the spread, that doesn't make the book.
It won't make it, eh?
It won't make it, but where Ellis got this deer does. Go ahead, tell the folks. In how many years of hunting?
25.
How many deer have you gotten?
This is the first one.
Where did you get it?
Inside Jill's dance studio in downtown Williamston.
Jill's Dance Studio, downtown Williamston, produced this buck. How long have you been hunting there?
I was there about 30 seconds by the time I got the deer.
30 seconds. What's the story behind it? What happened?
Well, they tell me that it come across the parking lot of the bank and down through an alley, made a left turn at Bill's barber shop, through the red light, and then it went through the door of the dance studio.
Through the door of the dance studio. We don't know if this deer picked that door up particularly, but what was next door to the dance studio?
There was a Williamston Exchange. It's an antique shop.
An antique shop. Boy, it just about busted up a lot of antiques. But it went into the dance studio. Ellis Weigant, you don't make the book, but congratulations on your first buck in 25 years. What a story that is. Now we're going to move down where the scoring is going on this potential state record buck. How's it going, Bob?
Oh, this is a difficult rack to score, even under our simple method of scoring.
Well, our
really
method
difficult.
of scoring right here, do we have that ring right here?
Yes, it is, right there.
Okay. What we're doing with these racks is we're adding up the number of tines it has. And we have some tines here that the only way we can tell if we qualify them is to hang a 1-inch ring. And if it holds the ring, it qualifies as a point. And then we measure the maximum outside spread with these calipers here. And that comes up with a whopper of a score that we're double checking right now. Gary Bandreau from Commemorative Bucks. Have you ever seen a year with so many big bucks as we've had this year?
No, I haven't. This year, right now, we are aware of approximately 4 to 5 Boone and Crockett deer in the state, both typical and non-typical.
That's outstanding. Boone and Crockett. Will this make Boone and Crockett?
Yes, it will.
Okay, and we're going to be back to talk a little more about some of these big racks. But you know, this deer was taken by John West. John, where do you hunt? Private land? State land?
It was state land.
State land. I got something to tell folks about state land in Michigan if you don't appreciate the hunting we have. Listen to this, John, about a hunter who talks about the hunting opportunities. I met him up at deer camp in
about 90
Texas.
miles north of Houston. And there was, on the plane, after we got on the plane, the Continental pilot said that he didn't want to alarm anybody on the plane, but the belly of the plane was full of guns, and it was all hunters coming north. Transplanted Michiganders, I guess, just moved to Texas.
I'll be darned.
Yeah, I thought it was really interesting. We thought that Carl would be the only guy in the airplane that had a gun with him. And we went down to pick up the luggage. My gosh, there was 15 guns sitting down there. They're all Michiganders that have moved to Texas in the last 4 or 5 years, and they're coming back for deer season.
Why? I thought Texas is such a big state with all the big deer and the record racks.
It is, and, and I've seen deer down there probably as good as anything I've seen here. But they are so tight on leases, and the price on leases is so high that even the people who live in Texas don't hunt there if they can find someplace else to hunt. They're either hunting in Nebraska or Utah, or they're coming to Michigan.
Well, with all that land in Texas, there's tons of it.
It's still all under lease, though, by the rich people that own the properties.
Because you don't have a lot of public land in Texas?
That's right, that's right, that's right. The state property, there's about, I got a letter just not too long ago, too, from the Texas Board of Outdoors or Wildlife or whatever, that there was about 6,000 acres that was possible for to hunt on. It was owned by box board companies and like that, but they're so overrun with hunters that nobody hunts there.
That's the way it is in Texas. I mean, a minimal amount of land open to the public. Nancy Gilpin, who's from Hanover. You having fun, Nancy?
Yes, I am.
Okay, well, you have the distinction here of the buck that so far, of course, our closing time isn't done yet because we have until January 10th for people to get their racks in, but it appears that you are the top woman bow hunter of the year. 26.9, how many tines?
10.
10 points, 16.9-inch spread. How big was this deer?
Weighed 185 pounds.
Wow, you took it on what day?
November 14th.
That's just before gun season.
Yes, it was.
Well, you were squeezing that out at 5:40 p.m. What was the story on this deer?
I'd seen it earlier in the season, and I'd been chasing it, but I just caught the one glimpse of it. So the night before gun season, I thought I'd better get out there and try it again, and I saw 3 does go by, and I thought, well, I'm going to wait. And it came in finally.
I'll be doggone. The one that you had been waiting for. You've bow hunted for how many years?
12 years.
How many deer?
6. $5.
That's an outstanding record. The land that you hunt on down in Jackson County, is that your own land? Is it a...
Yes, it is our land.
Oh, that's handy to have your own farm to hunt on. Well, Nancy Gilpin, congratulations. That's a
Thank
great
you.
rack. We have another one up here that, let me get a hold of this. You validated the score on that?
Yes, we have.
Does it match what I have? 35.1?
35.4.
35.4. Larry Lang, you got 35.4. That appears to be the biggest bow-killed buck by our scoring system in the state this year, so far. So you get the distinction of being on Big Buck Night here in Clammy. And how many points?
16.
You got it. What's
Yeah.
the spread?
Oh, 19 point something.
Yeah, 19.4 is what we came out with. If we were weighing deer, this would come close to being the top. How big was it?
220 pounds dressed.
220 down. Another southern Michigan buck down in Saline, Washtenaw County. You took it on the 28th of October. How many years have you been bow hunting?
About 12.
Same as Nancy. How many deer?
3.
Nance, you whooped him on this one. I'll be darned. What was the story on this buck?
Well, really, not too much. I guess I just got lucky. He stepped out of a dried up creek bed and started walking out in the bean field and didn't have much opportunity. I had to shoot when I did.
How many deer have you seen this year? Have you seen a lot?
That was it.
This was it. Boy, I
That's
tell you,
the only deer.
that's what it takes, taking advantage of that opportunity, shooting straight. Are you a pretty good shot?
I hope I think so
You
sometimes.
think?
You know.
Okay. You must be a good shot. How do you think that these two folks right here who've taken the number of deer they've taken bow hunting compare with bow hunters in general? Well, let's go back to the beginning of the bow season in our outdoor quiz. It's back in 1937, Michigan established a special license for bow hunters. How many bow hunters were there and how many deer did they take? Well, the 1937 records show that 186 hunters took to the woods with bows, but only 4 deer were taken. And today, bow hunters fare quite a bit better than they did in 1937. In fact, doing as well as the gun hunters do nowadays. But we're finding a lot of interest in going back to archery, going back to muzzle loading. In fact, come on up here, Mike Andrews. You have a buck that ranks 25.4. It wouldn't be big enough to make our regular firearm category, but for muzzle loaders, it does.
Sure does.
I got a question, though. It says here that you shot this deer November 15th, 8:30 in the morning.
That's right.
You could have used a regular conventional rifle.
That's right.
What's the deal?
Well, I thought it'd be a little bit unique. I got the gun a couple weeks prior to that and thought I'd see what it'd do out in the woods. So,
You thought you'd see what it would do? You thought maybe it wouldn't do?
well, you bring up a good point there. As I was trying to get the gun sighted in a few weeks ago, I was having a few problems with misfires right off the bat. And that morning, I forgot to test fire it with a cap on it. And so I felt there was probably a 50-50 chance of it going off when I was out there. So,
Of course, did you think you'd have any chance of getting a deer like this?
no, absolutely not. I figured I kind of doubted well seeing anything at all. As a matter of fact, the night before, I really wasn't planning on going hunting, but my friend talked me into it.
He talked you into it. What kind of guy has to be talked into going deer hunting? The answer is a guy who hasn't been deer hunting before.
There you go. It was
Is
my
that right?
First day.
First day, hour and a half in the woods with the muzzle loader, thought he'd see what happened, and he got this deer that had 8 points, 17.4 inches, 190 pounds. Mike, that's great. It looks like you've gotten the largest deer taken with the muzzleloader unless somebody gets one and turns it in a little later.
No time left.
Congratulations. And speaking of hunting with difficult weapons, here is a whopper. Does it still hold up at 33.5?
It holds up 33.5, right on the nose.
Come on up here, Ken. Ken Turner of Fostoria. You work at, what, GMC Truck and Bus?
Yes.
And your buddies talked you into going north.
Yes, Jim Hankley, he was at me, and finally I decided to go up, and I'm glad I did.
Okay, you've hunted for 14 years.
Yes.
It's your 5th deer, and he had to talk you into going to the UP?
I never went up north before, up in the UP, and everybody kept saying, well, you won't see one unless you see a big one. So
Yeah.
I thought, well, I might as well go up try to get a big one.
How many points?
He's 11.
11 points with a 22.5-inch spread. It weighed 190 pounds, and you took it where? Around
Marquette County, Lake Michigamme State Forest.
A UP buck, and the point is, what we haven't brought out yet is what did you shoot it with?
I got him with a new gun that Dan Weston come out with. It's a 357 Maxim, and I really enjoy it.
357. This is the largest handgun killed buck that we found. I was hunting with a handgun this year, but boy, I was looking forward to it. You know, handguns do have advantages.
I really like it. I was, if I wouldn't have had it, I probably wouldn't have got him because I sit down in behind a couple little pine trees and he come up out of the swamp and I didn't even hardly get it away from my face to shoot at him.
Is that right? Well, that has an advantage. Of course, we have muzzle loaders, bow hunters, handgun hunters, all with their deer. You notice all of these racks, if they aren't mounted, they're getting ready to be mounted?
Right. They were on the mount, and the guy said he'd take them off, so they'd have me bring the mount in without the height on it and stuff.
Okay, well, that's terrific. Now, there are some tips that you need to know. We went to Brad Bruce with Wildlife Taxidermy Art down in Tecumseh, and here's some tips that Bob Garner got from him on mounting your deer.
Now, I got a deer story for you, okay? My first buck, I'd gone 9 years. I hate to tell anybody that, but I'd gone 9 years without a buck. In my first buck, I wanted mounted. Nice 8-point, just about like this one. And I cut right about in here, Brad, because I knew that'd be plenty enough for a mount, right?
No, not really, Bob. We want them cut behind the shoulders, and the way we do them, and I still do them today this way, is cut right down the inside of the leg to the knee, and then we make a circle cut all the way around the back, behind the front shoulders. Okay, we would much prefer to have too much than too little, okay? Now, cutting it where you were indicating, you can get a neck mount out of it, but for a full shoulder mount, you want to stay behind the shoulders, and then again, cut it up the back. And you can cut almost up to between the ears, and then you can skin the hide away, which will allow you to get the neck roast out of there, and it will give us plenty of cape to work with.
But if a customer brings a whole deer into a taxidermist just to make sure, the taxidermist will skin that out himself.
Oh, sure, no problem. In fact, we generally prefer to do it ourselves.
Guess what kind of a mount I have on my first deer, Brad?
A neck mount.
That's right.
Right.
Okay.
Okay, well, here we have a rack that was supposed to score at what, 29?
29.2.
29.2. The significance of this rack is that it classifies in the woman's category. Come on up here, Charlotte, which you have to have a score of 24, and you made it with 29.2. Congratulations.
Thank you, Fred.
You're from Rives Junction. How long have you been hunting deer?
Approximately 33 years.
Man, how many deer did you take in that time?
This is my 21st buck.
What's the secret?
Be real still. Know what you're hunting.
Well, you are quite an outdoor lady. You don't just hunt deer, do you?
No, I coon hunt and I trap.
Trap what?
Fox, mainly.
That's the most difficult trapping. Right, Bob? Isn't that the most difficult trapping?
Fox, coyotes, yeah, the predators are really tough.
I think it's a real challenge.
Well, I guess so, but you've taken this deer, and I hear you won the local contest.
Yes, at the Carquist store in Leslie. I won their big buck contest.
Okay, and that's, you probably don't have your deer heads mounted anymore.
I've never mounted one, but I'm going to put this one on a board myself.
With 21 deer, what do you keep all the antlers in a pile?
No, I've got 3 or 4 sets of them. The rest of them weren't worth keeping.
Is this the biggest deer you've ever taken?
Yes, this was the biggest, the most exciting.
Okay, well, that's great. This was the largest deer, as far as we know, that's been taken by a woman in the state. Now, of course, Nancy Gilpin over here, she got the largest one with a bow, so we know it isn't just a man's world.
No.
Out there hunting?
More women should go out there and hunt.
Oh, I think they'd probably really enjoy it. Well, congratulations, Charlotte. You know, all of you will be members of the Michigan Outdoors Club. You all qualify for the patch, the T-shirt, and so on from our Michigan Outdoors Stroh's Hunting Awards, our Big Buck Awards, and you also get, right down there, all of you are going to get a limited edition print by Chuck Donald. It's called On the Wind. Special limited edition. It just came out, and I had a conversation with Chuck about this print not too long ago. A buck and a doe. I tell you, Chuck, I love paintings like that with a pair of animals, pair of birds. You don't oftentimes do that. You're painting last year. In fact, let's take a look at it. It's right behind here. Fold this down. Elusive buck. And this was voted by people to be the most popular one, and the edition sold out quickly. That amazed me. That's just one deer walking away. These, as a pair of deer, a doe and a buck. What's going on here in this scene?
Well, apparently he's following her just before she comes into season. And she's not standing for him at the time, apparently. And he's just coasting along until she gets ready.
So he's doing what many bucks do. They tag a doe. They're right behind him.
Absolutely.
But if you look at a close-up here on the buck's mouth, You can see that he's sort of, his mouth is open, rolling his lip back. What does that indicate?
Well, he's picking up the scents with his nostrils and also apparently his tongue. And he's just preparing. It's like a horse. A horse will do the same thing when the mare is coming in.
So here's a buck in rut, essentially chasing a doe right behind her. Now we see a couple other deer in this painting, which you might not see right in the background here. There's a deer standing in the snow. There's a set of tracks here leading back to that doe, and there's another set of tracks that goes through here to that deer whose ears are just peeping over the top of the ridge. I love this painting, Chuck. I think it's going to be even a bigger winner than Elusive Buck.
I hope so.
You think so?
I hope so.
Do you like it?
I like it. It makes a person work to look at it. They enjoy the whole picture by finding all the small things.
That's the painting that everyone is going to get here on Big Buck Night. And, of course, the top winners that appear at our Stroh's Sportsman's Banquet February 23rd will get a remarked print of this in the 8 top winners. Now, this rack here, gentlemen, did it make the awards? What's the score? I
No.
got 29.5?
Well, it's actually just a little bit smaller than that. It's 28.7.
28.7. It doesn't make it for a Stroh Award being taken by a male hunter with a firearm. But Ben Babcock from Mount Morris, we wanted to have you done because you gave us an idea for 2 more awards that we're going to have to institute next year. Give you special credit this year. One is the circumference of the base. How big a round was this?
6 inches.
6 inches. It's just about as big as we've heard. Some of these might rival that here, but we thought, well, Ben, come on down, and we're going to measure that next year, and also the length of tines. How tall?
They're 12 inches.
Now, that's worthy of an award, don't you think?
Yes, sir.
Well, hey, that's why we had you down here on the show, even though it's a little short, but you'll get the art print and everything else that everybody else gets. Now, how many bucks have you taken?
Over 20.
Whew. And this is the first time in the UP. What was this deer?
First year in the UP, yes.
What is a buck like this doing when you see
He
him in
was
the woods?
just like the picture there. He was following the doe out of a swamp. She walked out, and then he was right behind her. He turned and looked at me, and when he started to run, I shot him.
How big was he?
230 pounds dressed.
Man, dressed out, that must have been a huge deer.
He sure was.
Ben, congratulations. Falling a little short of our trophy book, but we're going to add him for the length of tines and the circumference around the base.
Thank you.
And speaking of racks that are unusual in other aspects, Brian, come on over here. Look at this rack. Look at the width on that rack. Measure that one, if you would, gentlemen, to see how wide it is. Brian Shupeck from Jackson. You might recognize him from Shupeck Sporting Goods down there. Now, how does a guy runs a sporting goods store get all the good hunting? Who you hunting with?
Wow. Ted Nugent.
Ted Nugent, a guy who has a terrific hunting area, a terrific farm down there. Is that the biggest buck that's come off of Nugent's farm?
Yes.
And you got it. You must be in tight with him.
Mm-hmm. Pretty good.
That's something a lot of people write to us and wonder, they've seen us hunting with Ted and wonder if we can get them a hunt with Ted. He's a difficult guy, but quite a hunter indeed.
Real hunter.
Well, let's not talk about Ted right now. Let's talk about you, Brian. You've taken quite a number of deer. 10 years you've taken?
9 deer.
That's a heck of an average. What was this deer doing?
This deer was chasing 4 does in the middle of a swamp coming into an oak knob where he had about 6 scrapes laid.
Oh, he made a lot of scrapes. Any idea how old this deer was?
Yeah, it was 4.5 years old.
4.5. What's the spread on it?
Spread is about 27.5, right on the border.
27.5 inches. I haven't heard of a rack any wider than this. Have you?
No, not this year.
Widest rack. This deserves a Widest Rack Award. Brian Shupeck from Jackson. This has, what, 11 or 13 points?
Figured 11 points.
11 points. That gives it a score of 38.9, easily qualifying. It weighed 199 pounds. You're going to get it mounted?
And I have the whole deer mounted.
The whole deer. You're going to see it in Shupeck Sporting Goods?
Right.
Outstanding. But you know, Brian, you can't eat the antlers.
No, but they still look good.
They look good. We don't have a recipe for the antlers, but we do have a recipe for venison shoulder roast, which Kathy and I did not too long ago. I'm going to share it with you right now. This is my kind of trophy buck, Kathy.
Right, should be.
Well, my son Zach couldn't get his deer on the air in our big buck contest, but he can for his shoulder roast. Let's pour some tomatoes on here. It'll quiet down the, should quiet down the sizzling here for a second.
It will.
Okay, what we've done here to the shoulder roast is add, there we go, a can of tomatoes. That's a little quieter. Now this is a shoulder roast. This is the only cut of venison that I recommend cooking with the bone in, and you can see that big shoulder bone there. This is the shoulder blade.
You feel it.
And, you know, I always tell people to cut all the fat and the connective tissue off of the meat. And they ask me about this, well, how come you leave it all on? Because we're going to cook the daylights out of it. We're
That's
gonna,
right.
This is browned right now in seasoned flour, and here's what it looks like. Kathy, this is my kids, my son and daughter's, Zach and Tara's favorite recipe, and look at how the venison turns out.
Oh, it
Look at
comes
that.
right off.
Oh,
It
right,
should.
right with a fork. And there's the shoulder bone right down through there. Slides right off. Of course, people wonder what this stuff is on top.
Yeah, it looks like stuffing.
But what is it?
Okay, it's horseradish, something you don't usually find on a roast. I'm going to pour this on. It calls for 4 tablespoons, but I'm just going to pour this on.
Yeah, I like to use a little more horseradish than this recipe calls for. I also put in a little more tomatoes than it calls for.
Well, we kind of substituted. We cut down on water.
Well, yeah, this
We're
is...
going to add more tomatoes.
Yeah, season these things to your taste. It's not necessary to use a lot of wine. There's some dry onion soup mix. This is often a part of a pot roast recipe.
Right.
Sprinkle that right over the horseradish. Now, do you think we need to add any water?
I would add just a little tiny bit.
Okay, we'll put that.
That's, yeah, kind of around the edges there.
And you and I have talked about the wine. Wine is not my favorite thing to put on wild game.
I
but it's-
wouldn't, a whole lot. It calls
We'll
for
just-
half a cup.
We'll put a
That's-
tiny bit.
Right.
You don't
Kind
need
of for
that.
color.
How long are we going to simmer this in the oven?
Okay, this is going to cook for 3 hours. The last 45 minutes, you're going to add the carrots and onions and tomatoes.
That's when we put in these vegetables.
Right.
You don't think this is delectable? Get a last look at this. Look at that. Isn't that great?
Looks good.
I bet you any of the fellas over here at Big Buck Night would just be dying for a taste of this.
Already, yep.
How's that look, Ben?
It looks very good.
I think it is. We got to check with the ladies, though. Charlotte?
Scrumptious.
Scrumptious. Now, you've cooked a lot of deer, I bet.
Yes, I
33
have.
years of deer hunting? They
Yes.
taste better up north, down south?
South,
You sure?
southern deer, yes.
Okay, but she approves of that recipe. Nancy, we got to check it out with you. Not ignore the ladies. Does that look like a good recipe?
I thought it looked delicious.
What do you think about Bob Garner? You think he would go for something like that?
Definitely.
Well, you know his reputation. Let's go back and take a look at how he and Ed reacted to it.
I like horse. Oh, geez, you don't really even need a knife for this. It
Just kind of cuts up real tender.
comes right off here. Yeah, pulls right away from the bone too. Well, Ed.
Oh, geez. This could be the best. That horseradish is something else, isn't it?
You know, it's often said that if you take a recipe and you put tomatoes and dried onion soup and things like that that are in this recipe, that you can't go wrong cooking virtually any piece of wild game or even some fish.
Well, you know, just about the
Recipe like
best
that.
part, though, I mean, the meat is great, but you know, these onions, they just absorb all that flavor.
I'm sticking with the meat right now. That looked especially good.
I know.
That roast was made from my son's 7-point, but now we have a chance looking at this 21-point here taken by Bill Smith. Bill, what's a 21-point buck taste like?
Very good.
Does it?
Very good. You bet.
How did you cook it?
In a slow cooker with potatoes and carrots and onions.
Well, that's a story on a 21-point. I think our recipes stack up, you know, with any type of deer if you've taken care of them. By the way, our recipe for tonight's show and information about our programs is here in our Club Digest, which is yours, free for the asking. We have articles in here on deer hunting, big bucks, antlers, plus all the recipes. So write to us if you want a copy. Of course, you and everybody here this evening will become members of the Michigan Outdoors Club, complimentary. The guy we're talking to is a one who took the second largest buck in the state. Veteran deer hunter of how many years?
10 years.
10 years. Proverbial question, how many bucks?
You're looking at it.
This is it?
That's the one, yeah.
Well, Bill Smith, you're a minister from Dundee. You got a 21-point with a 23.8-inch spread, 204 pounds. Your first deer taken when?
Opening day, about 8:45.
And this is a southern Michigan deer, as so many of the big ones often are. And taken down at your home or your farm?
My wife and I own a farm in Onstead, and my dad and I hunted there opening day.
Now, that must have been exciting as heck after 10 years to be dragging this back.
Exciting to myself and my dad and all the neighbors.
Oh, I bet.
Great time.
For a long time. Where was this deer when you saw it?
Came up behind me, running in the woods, following 2 does. And I thought I'd have to shoot at him running, but he stopped just as...
How far away?
25, 30 yards.
Is this the first deer you've shot at in the woods? Have you ever missed?
Never missed. because
Never
it's-
missed. Hey, one shot, 10 years of hunting, but it's all worthwhile.
You bet.
Got yourself on Michigan Outdoors, and I hope to see you at the Sportsman's Banquet.
I'll be there.
February 23rd with this rack. And we're going to move over to the fella who everybody envies. How many points did it have, Bob?
I have to look again. There's so many points. It's difficult to tell, but 37 is the best estimate we can get.
37, and how wide is the spread?
The spread is 25.6
Holy
inches.
cow.
That's-
62.6 total. That's our record because we've just started the Stroh's Big Buck Contest this year. How close does it come to a state record, Gary?
Too close to really tell, but it's close.
We'll see when it dries out how the score adds up. This is John West we're talking to from Holland, the premier in the Spotlight Buck Hunter of the year. Undoubtedly, we will not have a rack bigger than this. 62.6 with 37 points. Where did you take it? You want to tell everybody the exact location?
Not really.
I don't blame you.
I took him in Allegan State Forest.
On state land?
Mm-hmm. Next to a cornfield.
Did you get out early?
Yeah, I got out about 2 hours before daylight.
2 hours and you sat there in your blind. Why? Is that the secret to success?
Well, I wanted to get back in there before he'd gotten bed down so I could get a crack at him.
How far away was he when you saw him?
About 10, 15 feet when I let him have it.
10 or 15? That must have just made you shake in your boots.
Not until after I walked up behind him.
Oh, after you'd shot him?
Yeah.
Man, you've been hunting for 10 years also. How many bucks?
I've gotten 5 of them.
We going to see you again here next year with another record buck?
I sure hope so.
Well, I hope so too. This is John West. Take a look at this buck. The largest in the state this year that we found, 37 points by the Stroh scoring method, 25.6 is the spread. Outstanding. I tell you, I know your family wants to come in here too. They deserve some credit. Come on in here. Everybody who has family and friends here on Big Buck Night, come on in, because this is the time we're going to get you on television. Are you proud of your boy?
Yes, I am very proud.
Boy, oh, how about that? That must have been exciting for the whole family.
Sure was.
It still is. I mean, he's in the limelight all over. Man, holy cow. We got racks here. Nancy, you have your husband here?
Yes.
He's got the camera. Why doesn't he have a deer? I thought the...
Well, he told me a 7-point and a 3-point added up to my 10-point, but
Oh, you
just
got 2
didn't
deer
make
this year?
it.
Yeah.
2 deer?
They said you can't bring them both at
No,
once.
we can't add the scores in that fashion. And that's right. This is, who could turn down this story here? I mean, for interest, this is the buck that was shot at Jill's dance studio.
Yep, that's it.
What was he doing at the time? Was he doing a 2-step or what?
I think the waltz right out the back door.
Yeah, well, I know he broke a lot of glass, and it was...
Yes, he did. He really tore it up. He tore up the stereo system and the furniture and the walls and the mirrors. Did a lot of damage.
We're clear? Oh, we're not clear. Keep going, huh? Oh, we still have 15 seconds left. Stand right out here, Bill. With that big rack, here's the second largest, and of course we have the first largest. That wraps up our Big Buck